Hello and thank you for joining us this afternoon. You're watching Bophelong on SABC News. My name is Bophelong. It is our experiences that sets us apart in life, how we react to certain situations. For Ziwande Bengu, it's his ability to turn his pain of losing loved ones into a well of inspiration behind his poetry that caught our attention. His work cuts across different disciplines in the arts, often fusing performing elements with his delivery style. Many a times, we get to see the finished product and enjoy the presentation of the performance. But today, we do things slightly different. We look at the story behind this poet's body of work.
Tell him I am not alone. Tell him I am still his son. Tell him I know what I've done. Tell him I apologize. Tell him I am stranded. Tell him I have been forsaken. Tell him I'm forlorn and abandoned.
Ziwande Bengu, a fast-growing brand in slam poetry circles across the country. Fans and peers alike have known him for his heartfelt and colorful performances. Like any other storyteller, his tales are inspired by his surroundings together with his imagination. Today we piece together the multidimensional puzzle that is the life story of this poet.
I grew up at Redoubt, which is a rural area, and the closest town is Bizan. And it was very basic rural area living. You know, people have cows, have sheep, we have land, we plant, people wake up in the morning at 4 and only get out of the garden at like 11, 12, when the sun is hot outside. So I come from, that kind of rural area.
His home structure was similar to those of other young boys in his village.
It's so normalized, this thing in our communities, in our societies, that fathers are not there, and that's fine. Nobody goes, oh, he's not there. This is not, I don't know, Santin or Lone Hill, where people lose their minds and go, oh, I'm gonna go look for my. No, I grew up in a rural area, so I think both our situations, Ayanda and myself, just raised us with tough skins. That's it, because he grew up with my father for the large part, and then at some point he just moved away and stayed with other family.
He shared a vague memory of life as a young boy without a father figure.
Essentially, I was raised by my mother, and that's not always easy, especially when you're not the only child she's looking after. I couldn't give you the numbers because it was alternating. It was a fluctuating number where some people would leave and go back home, and others would come in. Or at a point, I think there have been points where I've been the only child, and a mother would then ask someone to help, would hire someone to help us in the house, and I'd be the only one there, and then she'd be attending SATU meetings and everything like that, and then there'd be times where there's like 10 of us in the house, so it really changed quite a lot.
After years of domestic disputes, his parents opted for separation.
It's domestic abuse, man. I think after some time, because I think it had been going on for a while, a long time. My brother was born in 1980, and he was experiencing, the abuse as well, and the alcoholism and everything. So he experienced a lot more of it than I did. So in 1991, I was born. So it was still a long time. So things have been happening for a long time, and then I think she just finally called it quits. But I think it was just a domestic abuse situation, and she was just stronger than it, I suppose.
His mother tried to protect them from the pain of separation, but the pain was too great. Ziwande still felt the void that came with his father leaving their home. His half-brother Ayanda would live with their father.
Ayanda and I would grow up together, and we were raised as twins. Everything, we'd wear the same things. Even in graduation, we had the same shoes. There are photographs of these things. We were raised as twins, and people Elali knew us as twins. there was no disputing. When they said Ayanda, they said Ziwande. When they said Ziwande, they said Ayanda. That was that. And so when my mother and father separated, my father then wanted Ayanda with. And at the time, I did not understand that because I did not know that he was my half-brother and not my twin brother. So I think I only got to understand that a lot later on, that, hey, that guy is your half-brother. I did not have that understanding. So there were times when I would cry and say, I want to go see Ayanda. And then now my mother would have to summon up a spirit and send me to go see Ayanda, who was staying with my father.
As he got older, he searched for his sibling. He reunited with Ayanda and his older brother, but the reunion didn't last long.
He was involved in a car accident in 2012, December, just as we were going on to Christmas. I think it was the 24th. And he was involved in a car accident it was him and a truck, and he didn't make it. And became, things were tough for that December. So every December now is very somber for us. I think this year it's even going to be coupled with the fact that my sister also passed away, and her birthday is on the 25th of December. So it's all that weight. I'm anxious to get there because I know my mother is going to take it hard, man.
Shortly after his sister's passing, he suffered from depression.
In 2013, I was diagnosed with depression. So I was like on pills and whatnot, and things just kind of went south for me. I think academically and also financially. So 2013 was that year where things just, so things just went downhill, and then decided, hey, let's just breathe.
It's often said that the only constant thing in life is change. Ziwande's world was nothing short of that. In the midst of trials and tribulations, he picked himself up and channeled his energy to taking care of his mother, who remained the only constant thing in his life.
From humble beginnings to breaking into the world of film and performance, things weren't always easy for Ziwande. He tells us more after the break.
South Africa is the third leading country globally in TB infections.
We have 9 million new cases occurring globally, and 30% of those cases are occurring in the African region.
And there are two broad kinds of drug-resistant TB, so to speak. The one is MDR TB, and the other is XDR TB.
To ensure that everyone who's diagnosed with TB is tested for HIV.
There's grossly inadequate funding for TB. Vaccine, drug and diagnostic research. We need a lot more.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Good. Boy. Sit.
behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Welcome back to Bophelong with me, Bophelong Molebati. Growing up in Redoubt, a village in the Eastern Cape, Ziwande's artistry was undeniable, so much so that his mother dedicated every penny to his education to nurture his talent.
From an early age, Ziwande showed his creativity through his drawings.
Access to information was lacking, because I think growing up as well, I used to draw, and people used to call me, you were now an artist, and you never really fully understand what that means until you have access to information and go, wow, art is such a huge thing, where it's like an umbrella term for a number of fields.
The financial struggles that he and his mother encountered made it difficult for him to enroll at a tertiary institution, but his mother persisted until he made it through his first year at university.
To get through high school, I found out that my mother was going through loan sharks for me to get through high school. That's how expensive it was to go to NSA, and that did not please me. So I found out this year though, and I think the problems that I was having at varsity, I did not want to go home and to call home and say, hello mother, I have this problem and this problem, I need this much and this much and this much.
Shortly after he started at Wits University, Ziwande struggled to keep up with life due to lack of finances.
His passing then in 2012 meant I had to find other ways, to do the same things, but without him, So now it meant I had to find a place to stay. I had to, have food somehow. I had to get money for taxis to get around. So it became a situation where I'd pack all my suitcases from home and say, I wouldn't want my mother to worry about anything, And I'd come to Joburg and I would get inside Wits, my car, beep, and I'd pack my clothes and my suitcases and everything in the design room, and because I was studying design as well. So I would pack it in there, I would sleep there, I would do everything I needed to. I would type out things there. I would write things. I would write poems from there, No one really saw. I think perhaps someone suspected, but no one really spoke out and said, hey, that guy is sleeping over there. Or, at some points, I think to try and kind of alternate my routes and my routines, I would sleep in the library. I'd spend a week there in the library, because I would come to Joburg like a good month before, because varsity really opened in February, like mid-February. So I'd come like a good month before, and then I'd have to, go through everything, register and stay there and have auditions and have performances and have, it was, I think 2013 was definitely the hardest year.
Determined to complete his degree, he made means to still attend his classes without accommodation.
I'd leave with money from home, right? And so this was like pocket money, and she would think, because I would say to her, I would say to my mother, I'm going to be staying with a friend, okay? And then she would say things like, you can't just go to someone's house without having anything. So she'd give me money so I could buy apples or buy meat or buy something for the fridge. So that's her kind of thinking, And I would take the money and I'd use it throughout that month to try and sustain that living, So good thing I wasn't a drug addict. So otherwise, things could have gotten bad. But that's how it was. And you try to. I was eating a lot of bread at the time, a lot of bread.
Studying arts at university nurtured a talent he possessed from a young age.
I've edited TV series, I'm editing a film now, I've been a part of some great projects. I've shot documentaries, I'm editing documentaries, I'm contracted for a documentary next year. It's like I've tried to keep as busy as possible, and great work has come out of that. I think if no one is, I'm really proud of myself.
Ziwande found a way to pay for his studies and still provide for his mother while in varsity. But where did the love for poetry come from? Coming up after the break.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. This is SABC News. You're still watching Bophelong. It's fascinating when metaphors and similes reflect social issues, but in the life of Ziwande Bengu, they do more than that. Let's take a look.
While trying to come to terms with the loss of loved ones, Ziwande jotted down his thoughts and feelings. This form of therapy was an entry to the world of poetry.
I grew up loving literature and writing and reading. And by the time I got to high school, I was a bit more confident in my writing abilities. Grade 8, grade 9, I was in Pietermaritzburg, and teachers would invite me for these events and for me to go perform. So at the time I was still reading because I had no idea what performance was. So I was still reading a lot of my work. So I'd go out and read. I got to Joburg particularly to do drama. So I started learning what performance then means. So I started chucking away the book and started actually going to poetry sessions. And sometimes I would read, sometimes I would, recite a poem that I memorized, and I just grew from that.
This triple threat has never looked back since the first day he performed at an open mic session at university.
One of my greater highlights is the first time I performed for over 1,000 people at one place. And this was late 2013, and I was performing at the Great Hall at Wits for the ARC competition talent show. Packed like this, right? Rowdy students, right? Rowdy from the front to the back. This was like about 1,300 people over there, right? And I'm at the front. I'm one man on stage. Now that space is big, okay? I start performing. as I go on, it falls silent, right? I rip through the whole poem. I'm thinking, do these people even understand what I'm saying? You know, is anybody getting this? You know, I'm ripping through this poem. I go pa 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 pa, end. Poem comes to an end. Hall comes like to a standing ovation I'd never understand in my life. It just erupts, you know. And, you know, the most fantastic feeling ever. I think to date, that's the biggest audience I've performed to. And it still amazes me because I think that was the first time, you know, you really felt so alive in front of an audience, you know, and perform, especially afterwards. And then I think other highlights were getting to perform poetry at National Arts Festival twice, you know. The first time we took a play there, and, you know, the judges were, you know, taken aback. We performed a play called Fire Burn. And the second time I was representing Gauteng in the Slam for Your Life, and I came in second place. Oh man, I think that performance also just led me to the direction of adding a bit more prop and a bit more theater in my performances. I mean, and Lebo Mashile was, you know, was in the audience, and it was, you know, it's always great to get a nod from somebody you admire, man.
Through his gift, he has been able to share about his pain and disappointment, as well as his struggles with depression.
You left me an orphan, but you could never understand. Because when all is done and said, no matter how many words I write, or how many thoughts I mic, or how many thoughts I mic, or how many words I write, when all is done and said, for you it's back to holding hands and sing along.
His poems are deemed obscene and often address his personal struggles with forgiveness towards the man he longed for in his life.
He's a person who wronged my mother badly, you know. Every time my mother speaks of the situation, she still cries to this day, you know, and that doesn't make me feel great, you know. And I really think he is at a point, he's very stubborn. That's another thing. He's very stubborn. But he wants to make amends for, you know, not being in our lives or not being the greatest of fathers. But I think with us, the way we grew up, it's that role that he was supposed to have filled, it really did not bother us that much. I think we were just, we grew up in environments that raised us with tough skins.
Can art heal wounds, bridge generation gaps, and mend broken trust?
I'm trying to write myself back into his arms. Tell him I am not alone. Tell him I am still his son. Tell him I know what I've done. Tell him I apologize. Tell him I am stranded. Tell him I have been forsaken. Tell him I'm forlorn and abandoned. Tell him I am not Adam. Tell him I am a savage. Tell him I speak to death in second person. Tell him this body is holding my spirit ransom. Tell him I'm yelling because I'm burning. Tell him this house is a field of ash. My mother is a dying star. My father is a limping nomad. My brother is a ghost searching for life. And I am dust. Just dust.
Ziwande is currently working on a poem that he will recite when he reconciles with his father.
It were enveloped in a gift for the gods we buried in our...
I think when I was in my second year in varsity and I started questioning my being in a relationship with a woman. I think then I started becoming conscious of that. Perhaps I'm scared of, you know, becoming my father, you know. So I stayed, and as much as I would admire a woman from far and go, hey, you know, but I know for a fact I had great commitment issues. And it's not that I was a cheater, it's that I just did not want to have long relationships with anybody for a long time, because I was convinced that at some point I'm going to hurt you, and I don't want to do that.
Her visibly quaking palms, her arms.
One thing for sure, the honesty in his work has struck a chord with lovers of poetry from all walks of life.
So I move to her shores, and the closer I get, the more I see her banks are anchored with sand. Even seamen know relationships sink in these oceans. I offer her a drink. She gobbles down the glass, and the hours of those sands pass down her hands and trickle, crystal by crystal, lost in the canvas that brought her the seamless streams of strings that string what seems like strings, like beads. The hurt that lets the birds in to nest.
Ziwanda and his father are still working towards reconciliation. May his work continue to heal the wounds and mend broken relationships. On that note, we conclude today's show. Remember, you can get in touch with us and share your thoughts on the stories you've seen on the show. Our contact details are at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much for watching. Until next week, goodbye.